Warriors. All right, it's June. We here. So, okay, it's all about the mind. We already know that. Um, Interestingly enough, June is Mental Health Month for men. So, I'm going to do my best to really gear a lot of the information that I put out this month for the brothers. I mean, not that, sisters and many of you queens out there can't take advantage of this information, but when it comes to mental health, it's something that I'm very passionate about. As many of you know, worked in the mental health field for a very long time. Also, part of the reason why, a large part of the reason why I'm so passionate about mind science. So this evening, I decided that before we get into any of the heavy stuff that's really hard to comprehend, that may be on an esoteric level or some of the high sciences, where it would rattle your brain and question and cause you to really question my intentions, I wanted to get right to it off the break and speak about manipulation, which is something that everybody's dealt with on some level. Um, I'm well versed in manipulation. I've been manipulated in just about every way that you can possibly imagine. And if I had an ego, that would be something that I wouldn't want to mention. But death to the ego. It doesn't really do us any good to have an ego. Always want to have that ego death so that you can continue to ascend and see things clearly, from with humility, because that is true power. That way you can keep control of your emotions and be able to see things for what they truly are versus what um, an emotion, which might not really be resonant with the truth. Yeah, you may be feeling that emotion, but it might not be the truth of the situation. And I want to avoid that. Part of the reason why I really want to go in this too is because it's been brought to my attention that certain people may think that I am trying to manipulate them. So we're going to deal with manipulation and what it is this evening. And hopefully, by the time we get through the end of this, we all will have a better understanding about what manipulation is, how to recognize it, and how to defend ourselves against it. Now, we can't get everything in this one session, but we're going to cover some of the basis of manipulation and how it works and why people use it, for different reasons, but the main reason being control for the most part, control against one's will. And we see this on the macro and the micro level, meaning on the large scale and in our day-to-day lives. I mean, shoot, person's capable of manipulating themselves, let alone a government or a large organization that has foul intent. So, so here we go. So we're going to start this off by breaking down something that's very important. We're going to break down a universal principle. We're going to break down the universal law of thought, or we'll put it this way: the law of thought is the law that's above every law. Now, why is that? Because it's consciousness. This is infinite intelligence, and when I use thought and consciousness in this sense of what I'm going to be delivering here, this is a very small, minute fragment of what consciousness really is, but will give you the fundamentals or a baseline to understand consciousness. Because we understand that consciousness consists of your conscious state and then the subconscious state. The conscious state, when we're aware of things we see, feel, touch, hear, being conscious, that's only 4%, roughly. of all consciousness. Subconscious, which is automatic, is about 96%. And so many of us are not aware of how the subconscious work. So, the law of thought is the law above every law, okay? I took some notes down here to kind of keep me on track a little bit. Thought is the number one factor, the number one cause, the number one power. It's infinite intelligence. You know, it's where all creation comes from, and we're going to be able to break that down a little bit in a second here. So that would mean that God is universal law. Source is universal law. Or I put it to you like this: the I am. Very powerful words. I am. I am that I am. And God goes on to say, I am God, and there's no other beside me. I'm going to break that down in just a minute, but let me back up here. So another way to say that God is universal law is this is awareness. Awareness, okay? Consciousness, thought, thinking, belief, all associated with each other. Very intertwined. It can be confusing if it's just thrown around loosely. So like I was saying before, so God says, I am God, I am God, I am source, and there is none other beside me. Be still and know that I am God. Okay. Let's give you an example. I've had some very chaotic times in my life where my mind was just going. There was so many things coming at me from the exterior, meaning like just in my environment, work, building a company, being a parent, my health. Oh my gosh, my health. And I can remember I got to a point where it was just like, yo, I didn't even have any space in my own head for myself. And my face was on fire. Trigeminal neuralgia. So the nerve around here, around your eye, run down your lip, comes out the back of your neck and down into your back. The nerve was popping off so hard where I can open my mouth and I can feel it like pop, 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 pop. And I would just pass out from the pain, you know, and then wake up, and hopefully anything didn't trigger me, which it did. And then it was we started all over again. And I can remember laying on the floor and just being like, okay, God, this is where I am. You know, in the midst of the chaos, in the midst of the storm, I'm grateful to know that I still was conscious enough to call him God. I was at a very low point, you know. I had always been able to use my ability to focus and concentrate to get out of so many disparities in my life. And at this point in time, my focus was being attacked. My ability to concentrate was being attacked. And that's a very scary place. Very scary place when you don't know whether you're coming or going. But I just laid there, just breathed on the floor in the dark. I said, okay, God, I'm still with you. I'm still with you. And then eventually, I heard in my own thoughts, my higher state of mind, because that's where God is, He's within you, said that I will always be with you. You will get through this. Didn't say that I wasn't going to have to deal with it, but said that I would get through it. And it was so peaceful when I heard it. And that was all I needed. And then from there, it was a climb. It was a serious climb. I mean, we won't get into all that, but I'm talking about years in and out of the hospital, all kinds of medication, setbacks. People stabbed me in the back while I was going through it. But I had already made up in my mind that I couldn't be stopped. So I'm telling you this because I want you to understand that you can't be stopped. You can make up your mind. You can decide what's going to happen for you. And then also, I want you to be aware of what manipulation is, because part of the reason that I was in that predicament is because I didn't have control, complete control over my own mind. I had subconscious programs running in the back of my mind that geared me into a place that wasn't healthy for me. And it came from various things. So like I was saying before, so to be able to hear this, you have to be able to cut off the external world. The things that people are telling you, the things that you're watching, the environments you're in that may be chaotic or maybe not, or just fake. Okay? So you got to be able to cut all that off and go within yourself. And when I mean go within yourself, you go within yourself and you're going to have all kinds of thoughts and you just release them. You don't try to suppress them or fight against these thoughts. You just accept them. Some thoughts are harder to accept. Some thoughts take time to get through, to process and let go with love. But you can do it and you will be able to do it. It's all a part of the process that makes you stronger within your own mind. So, give you another reference that I just kind of wrote down here. So in the spiritual text, it says that the Lord is in his holy temple. Okay. Where's your temple? Where's your temple? Where do your thoughts come from? See where I'm going with this? So you determine through your own thoughts. And we're going to get into a little bit in just a moment. So what is law in the sense that we're using it right now? This is inevitable tendencies. So law of mind is inevitable tendencies of thoughts becoming things. Thoughts becoming things. Little sidebar on the science. When you get enough of an energy, which is what thoughts are, because people can project thoughts, they can project negative, positive energy. You can get around somebody and say, oh, they have really good energy. Or you can get around somebody and say, something's not right about that person. So thoughts are energy. So when you get enough of that energy accumulating, it becomes a thing. It manifests itself within you first, and then in your environment. So you want to be really careful about your thoughts and what you think. And a lot of times we can think that we have clear thinking, not understanding that we're operating off of a subliminal, a subconscious program that's been embedded in us since children, which is why I love children. I'm always going to be available for children. For so many reasons. Like when you're a child, it's hard for you to really process traumas and thoughts. And hopefully you had somebody in your life to be able to help you process these things. But so many of us aren't. And we process those things ourselves as best we can. And this creates what they call childhood wounds. Most people minimize childhood wounds. And that's because they're just not aware of how important they really are. So when we're trying to grow, when we're trying to ascend to higher levels, when we're trying to operate from our heart space, it causes us to have to go back and deal with childhood painful wounds. And many of you are like, well, I dealt with my childhood wounds. Have you? I mean, maybe you have, but I can guarantee you it's an ongoing process. And if you think that you got it all figured out, all I can say is this: death to the ego. Like, it will lie to you. 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 Your ego will lie to you repeatedly, and you will believe it. So that's why it's important to have an open mind and operate out of humility so that you can keep your balance, because once that emotion gets going, you're in for a ride. So, speaking about emotions, we're going to just break down thoughts and emotions, the electromagnetic part of it. So, thoughts are electric, okay? So when you have a thought, it sends off a frequency, right? That frequency, that energy creates an emotion, whether it's happy, sad, whatever the case may be. That emotion is magnetic, okay? So the thought is electric, sends off a frequency, creates an emotion. That emotion that you're feeling draws more of that back into you, okay? This is dealing with the law of manifestation as well, as you can see. The emotion from the thought creates an image, a picture. And usually this happens when, let's say we get triggered. Say that something happens that upsets us. Instantly, if we haven't had a chance to work on this yet, it creates an emotion, from some previous experience of fear or trauma. And now consciously we know that this is just something in our head, but I'm pretty sure you can think of something that happened to you that will make you upset. So now you're feeling it, right? Well, when you begin to feel this, subconscious doesn't distinguish between what you're thinking and what's actually happening. If it's happening in your subconscious, then it's happening for real. That's kind of how that works. And that's why you want to be careful of this, because it will have the tendency to create a fallacy or a false perspective. But you will believe it very strongly because you'll be operating out of a space of hurt. Okay? And this is no knock on anybody. This is something that we all deal with. This is something that I want to address before we go any further. Because like I said, I got challenged. And I want to deal with manipulation off the break. So that as we do move forward, you understand or will be able to recognize when someone's trying to manipulate you. And you can stop it. Okay? Okay. Okay, so examples. Let's say somebody cut you off in traffic. This is usually an easy one. Someone cuts you off in traffic. And it triggers you a certain way. And it makes you upset. And then you start having all these thoughts. And then you can see this image of you running your car into the back of their car, or getting in a fight. A whole movie plays out. That's what I mean about the subconscious mind, creating a picture, because you had a thought, that thought created an emotion, now you got this movie playing out in your head. I'm going to run my car into the back of them, and I'm going to do this and do that, and don't want to do that. At this point, you're not in control of yourself, okay? And this can happen on a lot of different ways. Like, let's say that you grew up in humble beginnings, or let's say that you struggled in school and somebody calls you stupid, or somebody says, oh, you're broke, or somebody says you're ugly, or whatever, man. It don't matter. I mean, it's a billion ways to trigger someone, right? Or someone tries to make you out to be something that you're not. That's always been my biggest one. I'm big on integrity, and one thing that would always trigger me is someone trying to call me something that I'm not, because it's really hard to always operate from integrity, especially, when you want to punch somebody in the face. Maybe they deserve it, maybe they don't, but you want to be able to keep in control. We mature. We have matured, and we're maturing, right? So we're not going to do that. So, okay. Now, I told you before, this is how it works. Thoughts create habits. Habits form behavior. Behavior forms a character. So if you allow bad thoughts to control your mind, it's going to create bad habits. Someone's going to say something and you're going to think they mean one thing when that's not even what they're saying. But you're in your own head and you feel like, no, you're not going to talk to me. It's like, people get real rowdy. Well, people I know from where I grew up, they get real rowdy. You know, so now they have these bad habits, which form bad behavior. So then people begin to know this person for this behavior. Oh, don't say nothing to him. Say something to him, he gonna lose it, even if you didn't even mean it that way. And then this becomes a part of your character, hardwired within you. So we don't want this. And it works the same way with good thoughts. You have good thoughts, you're gonna create good habits. You know, I go to bed at this time because I gotta get up and go to the gym at this time because I'm trying to get this done during the day. So you're gonna create them good habits. Boom. Now you're creating a behavior that's working for you, right? And that behavior is going to draw in more of that energy. And then that is what people are going to be know. That is what people will know you for having that kind of character. That guy's on point. That dude's on point. That young lady's on point. They can't be stopped. Understand? Now, so this is just a simple part of what I was saying here. That's just the beginning part. So now let's deal with manipulation. Man, there's so many forms of manipulation. I'm not even sure if we can cover all of this. I'm going to just kind of run through this and see where we're going to be at with the end of this message. Probably have to do another part to this if anyone finds value in what I'm saying. Okay? So I'm just going to list a few different types of manipulation. So we got emotional manipulation, psychological manipulation, financial manipulation, social manipulation, physical manipulation. I'm not going to deal with spiritual because we're going to come back to that one later. Information manipulation, narcissistic manipulation, forceful manipulation, and cyber manipulation. And this is only 10. There's so many forms of it. So let's just go through some of this. I'll give you some examples of these types of manipulation. These are usually gatekeepers to some extent. Why do people manipulate? Well, the number one reason is control. To control someone against their own will without them knowing that they're being controlled. And there have been many, 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 many incidences of this throughout history and still continue to go on today with the media, with some of the history that we know. And I'm going to get into just a little bit of that. So, I'm pretty sure most of you know what emotional manipulation is, you know, trying to guilt trip you, gaslight you, you know, playing the victim. That's usually a narcissist, you know, that does that. Trying to manipulate the way you feel. They want you to feel a certain way so that you draw in more of that energy, which will confuse you. Okay? So we want to be in control of our own thoughts and understand how thoughts work, how emotions work. Okay? And we want to be able to take our instruction from source, from God, from the God within us, from the God that says that it's our divine right to have peace and to be prosperous. So emotional manipulation, well, happens in a lot of different ways, but it usually happens in a toxic relationship. We already know that. If you've been in a toxic relationship before, you can be manipulated through your emotions. And, you know, if you don't deal with that, it comes back to bite you so that you can't ever have a successful relationship again. Sadly, you got some really jacked up, toxic adults that emotionally manipulate children. Sickening. Especially when it's a parent that does it. Because they haven't healed themselves. And they don't know how not to be emotionally manipulative. Psychological. This is when someone's trying to influence your thoughts without you knowing that they're influencing your thoughts by lying to you, blatant lying. There's some skillful liars out here too. Don't get it twisted. Trust me, I done ran across a few. Like I said, when we go here, I've been got. That's why I can talk about this freely. Because now I know how to recognize it. I've been through it enough times to know how to recognize it when it is trying to appear within my life. Playing games, mind games. This usually happens with younger people for sure, but then adults who never grow up play mind games, you know, which creates confusion. And if you have someone confused, then you pretty much can do whatever you want to do to that person. Talk about the copper-colored people of America and the psychological warfare that they've dealt with and living in impoverished conditions with disparities beyond belief, which is why I do this, because I know what it is like to be from the bottom. And the only people who understand people from the bottom is people from the bottom. If you didn't come from the bottom, you're just not going to understand it. And that's no fault of yours, because, you know, we all want to have success and live, you know, prosperous lives. And I damn sure don't want my children to go through any of the things that I went through in that regard. And I'm doing my best to make sure that they have strong minds, you know. If there's anything that I teach my daughter daily is about her mind. All the time, on a level which she can understand it anyway. Financial manipulation. This happens in business. It's a dog-eat-dog world, especially when you have a lot of talent, but you don't have the resources. People who have money will try to manipulate you out of what you have because they want what you have. They want to control you to continue to make gain. Has this happened to me? Absolutely. Did I know what was going on? Absolutely. But why did I continue to do it? Why did I continue to be involved with this person if I knew that they were trying to manipulate me financially? Well, like I said, when you're from the bottom, you're willing to take some licks to get what you want. And at that particular time, as I mentioned before, I was sick. Couldn't do what I was doing before, working 3 jobs and, you know, working around the clock and all that stuff. I had a daughter to take care of, and me and her mother were not getting along. And I refused to let my daughter suffer in that way. So I was willing to take less. Knew this from the beginning. I was willing to take less because the less that I was making was still more than I would make on any job. So my ability to clearly think without getting overly emotional about it, because it did invoke some emotion, allowed me to still prosper in an ugly situation, knowing what this person's intention was. I can get into a whole lot about that. Like I said, I'm from around the way. I'm from around the way. It's more than one way to skin a cat. I mean, it was painful in the end result of it, you know, after we had like some really good success. But, you know, God had his way of dealing with that and making sure that I didn't continue on with that person, you know. That's another thing with people that are from humble beginnings. They're willing to put up with a lot more crap than they should because they know that they can take it. Just because you can take it don't mean that you should take it. Just because you can take it don't mean that you should take it. No need for you to continue to put yourself in abusive situations that causes calluses on your heart, and you can take it because you're numb. So, because when you begin to want to manifest on your own, especially as a high producer, you won't be able to do so because you need your heart space to be able to bring in incredible blessings. So if your heart is calloused and hard, and you might not even feel like that. You might be a very polite person, you know. I'm not talking about being mean. I'm talking about afflictions of the heart. Things that have been done to you that you suppressed. Because no one was willing to hear you. People didn't understand you. Didn't feel like it was worth talking about. Felt like you already dealt with it. Now I'm telling you this. I was working with a callous heart and changing other people's lives as a counselor. Thousands of people's lives. And I loved what I did. Loved it. Didn't do it for the money. Nobody becomes a counselor for the money. I'm sorry. It don't work that way. You don't put in 9,600 plus hours a week to help people with their issues because you're looking to get rich. It don't work that way. Yeah, you'll become rich, but not with monetary or fiat currency. You become rich in character. Which is why we're going to get a little heavy into this spiritual manipulation, because I've had people try to tell me certain things about myself because I didn't want to be a part of the church. You know, I've had people ask me to be ministers. I wanted no parts of it. Zero. Never. Never, 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 for many different reasons. We're going to start with the fact that, you know, when my mother was a teenager, pregnant with me, the church called me a sin while I was in her belly. Made her feel a certain type of way. Like she was just the worst person in the world. So before I even knew this, I never liked church. I mean, I had to go when I was a kid, but I never liked it. It was just something about it that didn't feel right. Now, if you go to church and you enjoy church and you're getting something out of it, I'm not speaking against that, but I'm just telling you where I'm coming from. I needed more than that. Way more than that. Way more than that. When you see your friends dying as a child, and you going to church and you praying, and you still not understanding, like, yo, why is it like this for me? Yes, like I said, I needed more than that. So that's the place I'm coming from in regard to why church was so hard for me to deal with, and why I never wanted to be a minister. But I believe in God. I believe in doing good, which is why I was a counselor. So instead of preaching up people's emotion and getting them amped up, and then telling them to come before an altar to kneel before me, a man kneeling before a man, I decided to get in the trenches and work directly with people that needed help, because I understood that I had spiritual gifts. And I understood what they were going through because of many of my own experiences growing up. So the streets have always been my ministry, and always will be. When I say the streets, I'm just talking about people who are just dealing with real life, man. Yeah, I mean, yes, I've had a chance to work with people who live lives that many people wouldn't agree with, but that's not really what I'm talking about in this moment. So let's move on. Social, physical, and informational. Great example of this. Social, physical, informational. So I'm going to use Hitler as an example. Whether you know it or not, before Hitler came to power, he had control over the newspaper. For a few years before the war started, it was all this crazy rhetoric that was coming out in the papers that began to influence the people. So that is information, social, and then it turned into physical. Manipulation. This man almost changed the world with his craziness. And he's not the only one. There's been many, many people, and that all started with a thought. All started with a thought. So do you understand how powerful thoughts are? Especially when you're not in control of your own mind. I'm just using this as an example. But if you can't have enough of an open mind to understand that this is very important, you won't understand why your life is the way it is when you don't want it to be that way. But you can make the change. Now let's deal with spiritual manipulation. Here go a good one. All right, let's see here. Hitler was also a narcissist too. Narcissistic manipulation. So spiritual manipulation. So we got religious guilt or fear, authoritative abuse, selective scripture interpretation. I tell you the truth. Spiritual gaslighting, false promises, spiritual rewards, isolation, love bombing, demonizing, exploiting of vulnerability. People who are going through stuff. Most people who go to church, it's because they're going through something. So let's go back up here just a little bit. Okay. I promise you, if you're getting something out of what you're doing, I'm not coming for you. This is not a knock on you, but I'm just giving the complete picture of things. Because people would like to beat you over the head with information that they know little about. Beliefs are so strong, man. Beliefs are so freaking strong. Whew. Now, I'm just going to ask some questions because we're having a conversation. I read the Bible. You know, I enjoy a lot of the text in the Bible. I like to get a lot of the spiritual hidden knowledge that's within the Bible. But not only that, I want to know where it comes from. I'm an intellect. So I study. And lo and behold, I mean, many of you know about the Council of Nicene. This is when they decided that they were going to only keep certain books in the Bible and then arrange the text a certain way and leave out other texts. So when I saw that, I said, well, hey, what's these other texts? So I read the Apocrypha, the Book of Enoch, the Ethiopian version. And why is it the Ethiopian version that I read? Well, whether you know it or not, the first church, first Christians were from Ethiopia. Did not start in Europe. How about that? Okay? Further in my study, many of the books in the Bible I've also found in texts that supersedes the Bible, sometimes by 50,000 years. And I know a lot of people, or it's hard for a lot of people to swallow that, but do your own research. You ain't gotta believe me. Trust me, this is not manipulation. You do not have to believe me. All you gotta do is go and look it up for yourself. Just look it up for yourself. You know, whether it's the Epic of Gilgamesh, or whether it is the Book of Life, or whether it is the Emerald Tablets, doesn't matter. And most of these books that I'm talking about are books or scripture or scribes that are in stone. You understand? They didn't write this on no paper. They took the time to chisel this thing out in stone. And you can find a lot of the information that's in the Bible is more historic. They've rearranged it as far as the years in which certain things happen. Now, the crazy thing about the Bible is, even though they did that, because the knowledge, the information that's in there is so powerful, if you're looking for truth, you'll still find it. Why will you still find it? Why do you still find the truth? Because, in metaphysics, all things have to correspond to the truth, meaning you can't get away from it. So if you're looking for truth, you're going to find truth. And how do you determine truth? How do you determine truth? Whether I say it, whether someone else says it, whether you read it, it's going to be a thought. It's going to be a thought that comes from where? From within here. From within here. Now, you can be influenced, but it's still going to come from within here, whether you decide to believe it or not. Whether you decide to believe what I'm saying right now or not, it's not up to me. It's up to you and what you think. How about that? So, it's a lot of fear mongering that happens in religion, where they get you off the break as a child, because most of the time your family believes a certain thing, so you believe that too. And it's like, oh, you're going to go to hell, or God's going to punish you, and all of this stuff. And, you know, I can't really get into it right now because I don't want to make the video too long, but a lot of the things that people don't even understand is, like, in the Bible, especially when it said God, the original text said gods. So is that the creator of all? That was, I think not. I'm not going to get too heavy into the esoteric because I don't want to blow your frontal lobe off real quick, where you just fizzle out and not able to have the capacity to really grab what I'm saying. Just look into what I'm saying for yourself. Just look into it. Start looking into some of this stuff. I'll give you another one. King James. How did he come into power? Who was his mother at war with prior to him coming into power? Why is the Buckingham Palace called the Buckingham Palace? King James was a dark-skinned Edomite. I'm just giving you some stuff that you need to go and check out for yourself. I bet you many of you didn't know that King James actually came to this landmass in 1606. Now, this is information that is, like, not in published. You're going to have to really dig to find some of this stuff. But he came here in 1606 to survey the land. Then he went back to England and created the London Company and the Plymouth Company. Why did he do that? Well, prior to the 15, the wars that were happening in the 1500s, we have to go back to 1490 with Pope Innocent declaring war on all indigenous people around the world. Because this was the beginning of the fall of the Moors that had created a Renaissance in Spain. And after the fall, then you come into the Spanish Inquisition. That was a persecution of all Hebrew people. Just look into some of this stuff, man. You should know what you believe in. Just look into the Spanish Inquisition. Check it out. Just check it out. This is no manipulation. This is all history that is not taught. So fear has always been one of the bigger ones that they like to use. I kind of covered authority of abuse, wherein they call themselves going on missionaries. Do you realize that for those people who were enslaved, some of the things that these people would do to them in the name of God? What God they serving? Hmm? And by the way, like, we were always here. Like, it's just evident. I mean, yes, slaves did come from Africa. Yes, they did. But I'm dealing with this because that's a manipulation as well. Because growing up here in America, especially in the South, in the projects, I can remember in the second grade asking my teacher about my history, and she looked at me dead in the face and said, "Black people don't have no history." Now, my mom's not a violent person, but, you know, my mom's 4'11". She was probably like 110 pounds at the time. Picked up a desk and hurled it at this woman in the parent-teacher conference. This is when I was in second grade. That woman ended up getting fired, but manipulation, childhood wounds. So I always, not knowing that I was connected to this landmass, I always felt a void within myself that many feel, because they feel like they are being cut off from something that they're supposed to know about themselves, not understanding that they royalty and they right from here. I can't get into all this history right now, man, but you know what I'm saying. Then you got to go into north of Mexa, you know what I'm saying, Turtle Island. Just look up some of these things I'm telling you. Turtle Island, you know, the Northwest Gate, India Superior, this landmass was called at one point in time. It's a map of it. It's called MS-13. Is in the, I believe, the England or London Museum. Land of Prester. Going deep. So I said India Superior. What else was it? Grand Tartaria. This land was part of the Grand Tartarian Empire. Selective interpretation of scripture. People use this a lot, man. It's abusive. It's abusive. The one that just comes to mind. Now, if you got good parents that do their best to try to take care of you, then you can't fault them on that, because it's hard being a parent. You understand? You accept the good that they gave you, and what you can't accept, you know what I'm saying, you find your balance with it and you keep it moving, because they're human too. But when they use the scripture, honor thy mother and thy father. Now, with all of the abuse that goes on in this damn world, with children, with their own parents, or the people that are responsible for them, do you really believe that that scripture is talking about a human being? Mother Earth, Father Time. Respect these things and your days will increase upon the land. Now, does that make more sense? If you're a good steward of your time, if you honor the earth, can you see how that may allow you to have a more prosperous life or extend your life in a certain way, free of stress? But then people who want to control you, or the words say that you're supposed to honor your mother and your father. Yes, honor and respect your mother and your father if they're doing what they're supposed to do. But they're human too. And you got to be able to see the truth for yourself. And anybody, I don't care who it is, like, let's deal with that. They say that family is, you know, blood is thicker than water. You know what I'm saying? Meaning that you're always supposed to be there for your family, and family's always supposed to be there for you. Well, this is my interpretation that I use in my mind that works well. Family is those people who care about you. That's family. People who genuinely care about you. I don't get caught up in that whole thing about, blood. I know better than that. I mean, not to say that you're not going to have a good family, but not all of us do. Not everybody does. So that's irrelevant at that point because it doesn't hold all true. So you shouldn't hold on to that because now it's a fallacy. Now it's creating a false thought, a false premises. Control. Got you in a jacked up situation where you've been abused in different ways or lied to in different ways where it doesn't feel right, and you numb yourself and then you tell yourself a lie because of something that someone told you God said, versus believing what's in here. And that takes time to be able to believe what you hear within yourself. It took me time to get to a point with certain things, which is why I had to increase my knowledge to become enlightened, to understand what true sovereignty is, and not to be afraid to step into that. These are not easy things that I'm just speaking about. I'm not minimizing anyone's struggle or something that someone has to go against, but I want to deal with this now. Help you to understand what manipulation really is at a basic level. Teach you how to think for yourself before we get into the higher science of this mind science, because we're going to get into some things. But if you can't deal with this, man, like, I ain't trying to fry your brain. I don't want to be responsible for that. So that's why we've been slow rolling it up until now. But we're going to keep picking it up, because I got people who are reaching out to me who are getting a lot out of this, that I am very grateful that they're getting something out of this. But I also, more importantly, I feel like I'm doing what God has called me to do. Part of what God has called me to do. And if my pain, my struggles can minimize someone else's, then it's worth it. If I can teach somebody how to alchemize pain, if I can teach somebody how to take that pain and use it to work into their advantage, then it's worth it. Spiritual gaslighting, making someone doubt who or what they believe or their gifts. Now, this is a good one. Now, I've always been very spiritually gifted, and it's always intimidated certain people, or they would feel the need to want to use me as if I did not see what they were trying to do. I just don't really talk about it anymore. As a youngin, I was still dealing with stuff like, maybe I'm wrong, maybe this, maybe that, maybe this. But I got burned enough to know not to believe none of that, but to believe myself. But from a very balanced place, out of humility. You never want to be bitter, which you probably will be at some point in time. I get it. You know what I'm saying? Some stuff is hard to get over. You know what I'm saying? It's not easy. It hurt. But you always should want to be better, not bitter. Why? Because better brings you here. Bitter takes you there. You dig? And the better you get, the less that you got to worry about any of that, man. You know, so when I started speaking, I would have people like lay hands on this person. I never really been into, I'm just coming into this myself. What you mean? Want to pimp my gift? Or when you start to expand beyond what they are capable of understanding, they want to minimize you. They want to shut you down. No, that's not what that means. What you mean that's not what that means? I mean, you can have constructive criticism, don't get me wrong. But I'm not confused about what I'm saying and what I know and what God is telling me. But you'll have people to tell you that you're wrong and be adamant about it. I mean, you see people fighting over religion all the time, man. I'm just like, shh. Bro, seriously? I don't know what God y'all serve, man. I don't know what God y'all serve, you know what I'm saying, that y'all putting them in this little box that God can only do things one way. Whatever. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. Or promising someone that they're going to get something for their obedience, or be like, oh, if you plant this seed here, God's going to bless you. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't happen like that, but I've also seen people manipulate it. We see it all the time, especially in the 90s, these mega churches, and people giving up their whole life savings, living in poverty, and the minister or pastor or whatever got planes and yachts. People in his church dying from diabetes. All that money, you couldn't put money to research. You know why? Because it's a faith-based organization, meaning that they're controlled by the government. Oops. Did I say that? Look it up. Look it up. Or you got some people that just think that they're just elite. Or you got to come to me to be connected to God. You can't talk to God on your own. You got to come through me. Elitism. God complex. Giving up your sovereignty. And you wondering why you losing your mind. Come on. I know this sounds very simple, but in practicality, it's very complex. It can be very intricate in its workings of where someone is willing to set up to manipulate you. I'm not even gonna get into some of the other stuff that I know when we start talking about these dark energies and how people play in that stuff. And if your gates are open, take you for a loop, take you for a ride. You won't know whether you're coming or going, you know. But we're not gonna get into too much of that. Isolation. Got some people that will want to isolate you. They'll see your gifts. They'll see how talented you are, just being a great person. And if you got good people in your life, they'll tell you like, nah, don't hang around them because of this. Oh no, don't be around them because of that. Oh, you know, if you hang around this is going to happen. Trying to isolate you from everybody. This usually happens in abusive relationships, to be honest with you. You know, we have people that are trying to tell them, hey, this might not be the best person for you, whether it's a male or female. I know people like to generalize it and say like only females go through this, but that's a bunch of shit. Because men go through a lot of stuff too, where they're in relationships, giving their all to someone that might not want the best for them. And they cut off everybody who was a voice of reason, because it's easier to control somebody when you isolate them. Demonizing. Now, when people don't understand your gifts, when you are of the adept and you understand the occult or esoteric, naturally, I mean, you can read about it, but naturally, people never understand what you got to go through, what you going through within yourself, because you damn sure gonna have to go through hell and find your way back into the light. Trust me. And people will talk about you, demonize you. Like I said, that's one of my pet peeves, because I've always tried to operate out of integrity. Am I perfect? No, far from it. Far from it. Do I put my best foot forward? Yes, absolutely. And I always will. Because my grandmother taught me a long time ago, what you do in the dark will come to the light. And it was always important for me to operate with integrity when no one was looking, so that would be the shining light of my life. And it has been, and people don't like it sometimes. So not everybody's going to like it, and you got to understand that, okay? And they're going to try to demonize you because they don't understand you, because they're afraid of you, because they don't get you, because it don't make sense to them. But I can tell you this, for the people who really need it, who really do get you, you're heaven sent. And you got to be strong enough to believe in yourself. Are you going to be wrong? Yep. Are you going to get it wrong? Yep, especially when you're becoming a seer. You're going to be wrong before you're right. Just can't quit. And you just got to be honest. I didn't know enough. Well, this was going on. I figured that out. That's how you get there. Through truth, through honesty, and love of yourself. And understand that you don't have to be perfect, but when you get it and you make it right, that's what makes it perfect. Okay? People will manipulate you for personal gains. People who are insecure that want to do what you can do, but they can't. They'll manipulate the situation to make it look a certain way. Fear rejection or abandonment because they don't want you to leave them, so they'll try to manipulate you with different tactics to keep you in a toxic situation. Usually I used to see this a lot working with teenagers, whether it was a little boy or a little girl, in the inner city. Well, they said they was going to kill themselves. I don't want them. That's manipulation. Need of validation, meaning that they need to feel a certain type of way, or reassurance, codependent. Revengeful people, you daggone right. If someone got a vendetta to take you out, yes, all day, manipulation. Okay, so that's enough of that. So I'll give you another example before I let you go. All right, listen to this. Check this out. It's 4 pit bull dogs on a porch, well trained. One of them was a little hyperactive though. A cat runs by the porch. The hyperactive one decides that it wants to run after the cat. How many pit bulls on the porch? If you said 3, then your ability to process information is working, but it's working incorrectly. Because there was nothing in that statement that said that that dog actually left the porch. This is what you call a grand fallacy. It's a redirect. I said it decided to. I didn't say it actually did it. You see how subtle these things can happen? Manipulation. Well, I said quite a bit. Just to recap, like I said, man, you want to operate from universal law. You want to operate from the law of mind. You want to work with the I am, which is God, which is infinite intelligence. And you're always going to receive that information from within here. After you can quiet the mind, when you can get rid of the exterior, what people are telling you, what you're seeing, what you're reading, what do you believe? Are you strong enough to trust yourself? Because that's what is going to require to go on this journey that we're about to go on. You're going to have to trust yourself. You're going to have to trust yourself, and if you don't, it's going to send you for a loop. That's why we're moving so slow. I think that's enough for tonight. It took me a while to get this video out. So many things were coming against me from creating this video. It's been ridiculous. But I finally got it done. I hope y'all receive some insight, some value from something that I said. I love y'all. Like I said, it's men's mental health being put on spot this month. So, anybody who's dealing with anything within themselves, especially brothers that go through a lot, various reasons, maybe they're a vet, maybe they didn't pull some time, maybe they had to deal with an addiction, whatever it is. And I'm not just saying for the brothers, that's anybody, but right now we're just highlighting the brothers, or highlighting men as a whole. Know that, man, there's somebody out here that care about you, and we get it. Alright? And you're going to be alright. But you're going to have to trust yourself to understand that, you know, allowing your heart space to open up don't make you weak, bro. And yes, you're going to have to learn how to deal with sensitivity and deal with your emotions, which many men struggle with. They do for various reasons, because by the time you're 5 years old, you've been told you can't be no punk. Get it together. Boys don't cry. Now, I'm not saying that you can't be tough, but that's not the proper way to deal with emotions. If you do cry, it's fine. It's human. Just don't turn into no crybaby. You feel me? Let it out. Deal with it. Understand that it's natural. And you will become tougher, where you're able to process things a little bit easier, you know? It doesn't make you weak because, man, you're going through a lot. And I know how we do. We, regardless of, sometimes we shut it down because we got to get it done. I get it. And nobody don't care about your problems. Nobody don't care about your problems, boy. Understand? But there are people who care about you. Trust me. There are many of us that have been through this, and we get it. You know, and collectively, telepathically, we're sending you strength. So know that you're going to get through this, and you're going to get better, and you're going to keep ascending. Peace.